This is another case study update for the Site Growth case study. And this is a site that I bought in December of 2019. I had about 25 articles. I improved the content with the FAQ method. I added 8 new articles, and the revenue grew from $1,600 in 2019 to about $2,600 in 2020. This year in 2021, I can't believe it's already halfway through May. In 2021, I am adding 321,000 more words in roughly 139 new articles, and I'm working with brand builders on it. So that's what this case study is. There's a couple other videos, and I'll put links to the blog notes that you could follow along with. In this video, I'm going to tell you about the link building and how it's been going so far. 10 links were delivered over the course of March and April or so. So we're going to look at the metrics and see what's going on with it. We're looking at the screenshot of Ahrefs over here. And as you can see, the domain rating is pretty low at 4.5. There are 81 referring domains. However, there are only 30 do follow domains. And in this case study, the last month or two, we got about 10 guest post links, and there were about 8 do follow referring domains before these 10 links were built. And we can see, like I said, that there are 30. So there are roughly 12 other links that are potentially mostly spammy. I don't know where they came from. A lot of them were like Blogger or other Web 2.0 type properties and just not very useful. So anyway, we could sort of throw those out. And again, the domain rating is pretty low. And I think over time, it's going to go a little higher as we get some more backlinks there. So let's look at the links a little bit deeper. And I also have some data over on the Search Console that I'll show you as well. So over here on the Search Console, we're looking at about 6 months of data. I do like to zoom out often just so we can get sort of an idea of the trends. And this niche is very seasonal. You could sort of see quite a pickup here in November. There were a couple, I think, algorithm update impacts in general, but I think this is normally what we see for this site. Once you hit the new year, things sort of taper off and drop down to a bit of a lower level overall, just from the clicks and from the total number of impressions. As we look further, one thing I always like to do, especially with a seasonal niche like this, is I like to look at the last 3 months of data and then compare it to the previous year. So in this case, we're looking at the last 3 months of 2021. We're also looking at the 3 months in 2020 to see what the difference is. Now, as we probably know, around this time last year, the world was starting quarantining. A lot of online sales picked up, and generally there was more website traffic, and that was the case here. So we're looking at the total clicks in 2020 versus 2021, and we were ahead of the pace. The solid blue line here is this year, so we were ahead of the pace. Now that we're sort of in the period where the traffic was elevated in 2020, we are now behind the pace of last year. And that's for the number of clicks. And if we look a little deeper, we can check out the number of impressions. So it's roughly about the same. And again, we're looking at the last 3 months in 2021 versus 2020. And the impressions are roughly the same. We're a little bit behind. Now, I'll tell you right now, I'm a little bit surprised of that. I have published a lot more content in the last few months here. Brand builders wrote the content. We roughly doubled the content in February. This past week in May, I just published, I think like 15 or so new articles. So we're adding a lot more content. I do expect those to start ranking soon. I would expect there to be more impressions just because of the sheer amount of content that we're publishing. Now, one thing to note is I'm letting brand builders select the keywords. I'll give them some input, but whenever I do these case studies and I test out services, I pretty much want it to be just like if you purchase services. So I will give some input. I'll say, I want more informational content. I want all informational content this month, which I just told them. And they will come back with keywords, and maybe I look at them and I think, you know what, these two are a little bit similar. Find another keyword, group them together, and I'll give them feedback like that. But largely, I'm letting them select the keywords, and they do it through a combination of some competitor analysis. They seem to be using Ahrefs from what I can tell. They're looking at the keyword difficulty, search volume, a couple other factors, and I'm really trying to simulate exactly what it would be like if you purchase something for Brand Builders. So with that said, I got my fingers crossed that we will see quite an uptick. Now, let's go back to the Search Console, because there is a little bit more stuff going on there, especially with the new, I guess, like user experience kind of stuff that we're so concerned about these days. So I popped over here, and this is the page experience on mobile. The site has 100% URLs with a good page experience, but we see like it ticked up where there were 100%, and then it went down to 0, and then it popped back up to 100%. And I just wonder what the heck is going on with these graphs? Why does it look like that? I would expect it to be a little more consistent, maybe a ramp up as they check the site, but like 100% to 0% to, I don't understand. It seems like they're still pulling things together. This is a new report, but what this tells me is, I don't know. I honestly have no idea. And if you're watching this video hoping you're going to learn about Core Web Vitals, well, I don't know either, my friends. I have no clue. Again, we have this, we have 3 different factors. You got red, yellow, or is that orange? Looks like yellow, somewhere in between there, and green. So we have going from all or nothing, back and forth. Either it needs improvement or it's fucking perfect. And it doesn't make sense to me. Again, on the desktop version, we have the same situation. It looks like, well, I don't know what to make of it. And to be honest with you, most of my sites load pretty darn fast, but sometimes these Core Web Vitals and some of the specific issues that we see with the largest contentful paint and the first something or other, well, it's a bit off out there in the real world, apparently, even though my sites load really fast. And what am I doing about it? Well, I'm not worrying about it too much, but I just wanted to show you this since we were in the Search Console. And what I want to do now is show you some of the specific metrics for the links. Now, I'm not going to show you the links specifically, but we'll look at some of the metrics. So in general, we're in a range of DA22 or higher, or a domain rating from anywhere from like, I think one here is a 2.5 all the way up to 50. I listed the number of referring domains as reported by Ahrefs and the do follow referring domains, which I feel is the true number of the number of links. So if you just have a bunch of random referring domains, some of them could be spammy, some could be garbage. Those are going to be no follow in the delta here between the do follow and the total number. And then I have the traffic listed. Now, when I remove all the BS and all the SEO metrics and all that stuff, sites that are pulling in more traffic, in my opinion, are going to be the ones that have like more power. They have the actual capacity to make your site rank better. Now, that's not a hard and fast rule, but if I get a link from a site that has a domain authority of 23 and has 75 do follow referring domains, but the domain rating is 2 and the traffic is 5, I kind of have a feeling that those do follow links are probably not very good. Whatever's on the site is not that good of content. People aren't searching for it. Just generally, this site is probably not a great one. However, when I see a site that's getting 10,000 visitors or 5,900 visitors per month, that's great. In fact, if it's niche specific, I don't even care if it gets a huge amount of traffic as long as there's a little bit of traffic. If it's niche specific, which a couple of these links actually are in the exact niche that I have my site in, and it fits perfectly, that's even better. But the point is here, some of these links weren't the best. I do have some notes specifically because what I did for this analysis was actually go and look at the sites and I tried to give my really subjective opinions. So some of them, here are some of the just qualitative notes that I have. Some of them covered sports and music and culture. However, it was mostly a sports site, which is not in my niche. Another one seemed extremely relevant, and it looked like a legit blog. There were a handful of sponsored posts, but I didn't feel like it was a alarming amount. There were a few, but not too many. And when I looked a little deeper for some of them, I was honestly a little bit disappointed, which that happens with just general outreach. That happens. So one of the ones that I was not super impressed with actually got an okay amount of traffic, but it was a news site. It had gaming, entertainment, science, technology, literature, really just a ton of stuff. So not very niche specific. And there were some links, and it looked like there were quite a few sponsored links. So a lot of gaming topics, which also is not my niche. Now, another site was a personal blog with a bunch of random stuff, which actually made it seem even more real. It looked like a real personal blog. There were quite a few contributed posts, but it sort of fit in the scope of the personal blog website. So my hunch is someone started a personal blog. They started getting a handful of offers, and they now do sponsored posts, maybe a couple times a month or something like that. Now they publish other things too, but there are some sponsored posts, or at least it looks that way. Another one had state level activities and a good amount of advertising. But the thing is, it was sort of like one of those current event sites. So if I typed in, Boulder, Colorado, what to do this weekend, a site like this might come up, and there would be all these live events, and there are legitimately a lot of advertisers. It kind of reminded me back in the day when we used to have newspapers and like the local newspapers that were weekly. I think there was one in Atlanta called Creative Loafing. That kind of rings a bell. But all the activities were listed, and people were able to just see what was going on. And there were tons of ads. There were free newspapers, and they just passed them out all over the place, but there were ads in there. So this one site was like that. So you literally could get a ad banner, you could get a sponsored post. They had a number of different packages out there, which, as a side note, that's actually a reasonable site to start. Like if you had some sort of a local based site, like you could do that. And if you were one of the first or one of the best, or at least you did better marketing than some of the other competitors, then you would probably be able to have like the Boulder County activities website. So moving on, there's a couple that had quite a bit of traffic. The one that had the most traffic, and it was a domain rating of 38, got 10,000 visitors per month. That's the estimate from Ahrefs. It was pretty random. It had a lot of news and entertainment, again, science and tech. There were some links, and some of them were sponsored, but it looked like they were at least publishing a lot of content, and a lot of it was original. A lot of it wasn't sponsored, and you could just see they probably had a staff of writers going for all that stuff. So overall, the links were, I would say, probably 60 to 75% were pretty good. The ones there were two that I was more concerned about, and the estimated traffic was only 15 visitors per month and 5 visitors per month. The others were generally okay, but I would say those couple sites that really don't get much traffic, those are the ones to look out for. Now, I know some other companies, some other services will offer you the opportunity to get guest posts on sites that have a certain minimum amount of traffic. So it could be 1,000 visitors per month, or 10,000 or 50,000 per month. So you know that you're publishing your guest post and getting a link from a site that actually gets a significant amount of traffic. Of course, it costs more to do that, but generally that is the idea. Other services will just say, we're not going to post any guest post or any link on a site that gets less than, say, 500 visitors per month, something like that. So Brand Builders doesn't have that metric set up or any sort of cutoff, but it's just worth it to note. Again, if it's niche specific, it may be a really good place to get a link from, just because it's so relevant. Have a look at some of the other videos in this series for the site growth case study, and please have a look at the blog post. I'll put links so you could follow along. There's some other information, some screenshots, and that sort of thing. So thanks to Brand Builders, and looking forward to giving you an update again in a couple weeks here.